With Godforge Alpha being such a limited window of time, the weapons mechanics inside of the game can often become a lost element of building heroes. I myself really struggled to know when to focus my attention on them, especially with so many other areas of the Caverns I wanted to farm. And so today, I'm going to answer the question on if weapons are worth farming for, where to farm them, and most importantly, when to begin focusing on them. And the answer might surprise you. Let's get into it. When you go look at the weapons inside of Godforge Alpha on ravenpyros.com, you can see that there are 27 weapons in total available to us in the alpha. This can be a lot, and you can see here behind me that every weapon has its own description, ability, it has its own primary stat, and that in addition also has a secondary stat to boost your hero. And at the very beginning, in stage 8 of Godforge Caverns, you are going to be able to get the battle axe as the primary weapon dropped from that level, and that is a weapon that's going to be able to provide some damage to your primary damage dealer. With the first stat being attack, it's going to be something that you're going to want to equip onto your hero. Now, the question of whether you should use weapons is not what we're answering in this video, because the obvious answer to that is yes. Weapons provide a primary stat, a secondary stat, and the ability to imprint a passive onto it for your hero to be able to use. And so for those things alone, it is a critical asset for your hero to be able to continue to boost them into the direction you are wanting to build them. For a damage dealer, that can be anywhere from 55 to 70% additional crit damage, 600 attack on a maxed out legendary weapon. And those kinds of stats are pivotal to all other types of heroes, because when it comes to building them and having a hero that only has 6 gear slots on them, these stats are really going to go far in boosting their damage, their accuracy, or any other stat that you are looking for. And make sure and hit that subscribe button down below. You can see here in my channel metrics that over 70% of my viewers are new viewers. And while part of that has to do with the life of my account being just over 4 months old, it also shows that there are a lot of people seeing this content for the first time. And so by subscribing, you're going to push this content in front of more people who could use it, as well as be notified of future videos and live streams. So make sure and hit that button and join me in the journey. To dig deep into the weapons inside of your account in Godforge, you can go to Wayland Smithy at the Sanctum. And in the Wayland Smithy, you're going to find a full catalog of all the weapons on your account. Here, you can refine them by selecting and then using Godsteel to upgrade them. And this is going to allow you to boost those stats. Once a weapon is upgraded to its max level for that particular rank, you are then going to be able to have the ability to use a duplicate of that weapon to increase their rank, and then which will allow you to increase their level once again. Obviously, this is going to require a lot of resources, and so if you want to have a weapon maxed, you're already going to need to farm the level that they drop at, as well as a corresponding level 9 in the Caverns to get the Godsteel you need to level them up. But as I've referenced earlier, it doesn't even stop there, because regardless of the stats, regardless of the abilities of the weapons, you can imprint a hero's passive onto a weapon, granting the hero holding that weapon a great additional ability. This was key in Godforge Alpha Caverns when it came to the Isolde passive. Isolde, granting an HP healing percentile back to the entire party when a defender is hit, was a pivotal skill used in many fights to maintain the health and survivability of your entire team. And so by sacrificing an Isolde copy to grant her imprint onto a weapon and then putting that weapon onto a hero with a high HP threshold, every single time a defender on your team would be hit, your entire team would heal by a certain percentage of their health. And this was a great way to maximize weapons, to maximize imprints, and to therefore maximize your progress in the Caverns. Don't sleep on imprints, guys, because this is what really enables your heroes and maximizes your account for progress. So yes, you should farm for weapons, because you're going to be able to use the duplicate weapons you find to rank up the weapon you are investing in and then maximize the stats on the heroes you have. But where do you get them? Weapons can be found at the level 8s inside of the Caverns, so 8, 18, 28, 38, etc. Now, not every single 8 has a weapon, a specific weapon that is dropped, but we'll get to that in a second. As you can see here on level 8, the first weapon that you can farm is the Battle Axe. This weapon enables strong hits to inflict 10% increased damage, and its primary stat is attack. And so this is already going to be a great weapon to throw on your starter hero, regardless of whether or not you actually increase its level or maximize its damage. But if you do choose to farm, make sure and find one that has a crit damage secondary stat, so you can continue to boost the damage stats on your hero. Now, I may need to apologize for my pronunciations, because at level 18, you can farm for the Kiang. This weapon increases the damage inflicted when counterattacking by 20%, and its primary stat is accuracy. So if you have a counterattacking hero, this is going to be a great weapon for them. Again, make sure and maximize those damage stats on this weapon. At level 28, you can farm for the Khopesh, and this allows you to ignore 10% resistance with the primary stack of attack. This is a little bit of an interesting weapon because you would think that it would be enabling accuracy, but it really just continues to boost those damage stats. I didn't find a whole lot of use for this weapon at the time, but when I got it, I simply got the stats that I needed and threw it on a hero that could use them. 38, 48, and 58, at least in the data provided in the Caverns, didn't seem to drop any specific weapon. So moving on to 68, you can go and farm the Solar Flare. Now this is your first chance to drop a legendary weapon at a higher rate. This weapon increases damage allies inflict when joining attacks by 5% with the primary stat of attack. This weapon can be a huge asset to your team when it comes to those ally attack heroes, but also it can be something that is effective paired alongside of the Dagonet imprint, because the Dagonet imprint allows a hero who has it to grant a chance to join in attacks if the target is below 50%. And so if you put the Solar Flare on perhaps a support hero, not somebody who's going to be doing a lot of damage, but perhaps someone who will be getting out a lot of attacks, then you have a higher chance of your damage dealer coming in and joining attack, and the Solar Flare will further boost their damage when trying to finish off the enemy heroes. At level 78, you can farm the Aten, and this weapon gains 25 divinity when placing a Blaze debuff. With the primary stat of attack, this is a great weapon for anybody who uses Blaze as their primary debuff. And someone to really think about here is Bernhild, who places a Blaze on the hero when she is under a Radiance buff. And so there can be some great synergies there regarding her abilities and how they work with this weapon. Level 88 is where you can farm the Worldsplitter. Now this is supposedly one of the best weapons inside of Godforge Alpha, with increasing all stats by 2% with the primary stack of attack. Now I probably should have mentioned this earlier guys, but do note that when I'm talking about the abilities of these weapons, these percentages, or what they grant the hero that is holding it, increases with every single rank that the weapon increases by. And so I believe as an example, as the Worldsplitter increases rank, at max rank, they are actually increasing all stats by 10% rather than just 2%. And so you're going to see massive gains and massive differences as you rank up your weapons, which gives an even further purpose to farming and increasing those ranks. Now level 108 is where you can farm the infamous Ame-No-Nuhoko. With attacks stealing 5% divinity and that percentage just increasing as you rank the weapon up and granting the primary stat of accuracy, this weapon broke Fafnir in Wave 1 and continues to have a great impact on boss fights, with every turn being able to steal a percentage of divinity and slow down their increase of ultimate meter. This weapon is great to have on your account, and you want to definitely equip it to a single hero throughout the rest of the game. But let me be clear, and that this weapon is not the broken weapon it was, but it does still have its benefits. At level 118, you can farm the Bloodsword, and this increases damage of attacks by 15% of this hero's missing HP. And so if you have a glass cannon that continually loses HP, there can be some great damage numbers when it comes to this weapon. But it's a gamble. They could die, and then you've lost your hero. And so whether or not you really lean into this ability or not will be up to you. Now level 128 is where you can farm the Thunderbolt, and this is one of my favorite weapons, as it grants single target attacks an additional 5% enemy max HP damage. However, this is 80% less effective on bosses, and so this weapon doesn't automatically make someone a boss killer, but it does certainly have its benefits. And for those of you who know me and have watched this channel, you know that I'm a huge fan of Zeus. And throwing the Thunderbolt with attack as a primary and crit damage as a secondary stat is going to really maximize his damage and do great things with him. There are several other single attack damage dealers that as well this is going to have a huge benefit on. Throw it on Beowulf, and he's going to even become more of a boss slayer. Put it on any of your starters, and they're going to continually chunk more damage away from enemies. So really, just a great weapon all around. You can farm the Grail at level 138, and this weapon increases all sources of healing by 30%. Now, I did some initial testing with this weapon because I thought it might further maximize the Isolde passive, but I really struggled to see the numbers as to whether they were actually increasing or not, and frankly, my gut thought is that it didn't. So an actual healer like Imhotep, this will be a great weapon for, but something like the Isolde passive, it may not necessarily be interacting with. And then level 148 is where you can farm Mjolnir. Now everybody gets Mjolnir at level 60, but that is only one version of that weapon, and you have to get all the way to level 148 to be able to truly farm this weapon to maximize its ability. By granting 250 initial divinity and then maximizing that at a higher rank, whoever you put this weapon on is going to have so much more divinity at the start of the fight to really start to use those ultimates much faster. And so Mjolnir is a great weapon to throw on anybody when you get it at level 60, especially if you want that hero to be throwing out divinity to support your team or do massive damage. And then yeah, as you progress through the caverns and are able to farm 148, if you are able to farm 148, it's a great weapon. Now guys, don't forget that you can get these weapons and as many of them as you want by farming the 8s in the caverns, but you also have to pair it with farming on the 9s, because every level 9, 19, 29, etc. is where Godsteel is going to drop, and Godsteel is the currency you need to be able to rank up weapons. The rarity you can drop and the amount that will drop increases as you go deeper in the caverns, and so make sure that you're always paying attention as to what faction Godsteel a level 9 is dropping, how much is being dropped, and what rarity is being dropped. Do note that when you see higher rarities, that doesn't necessarily mean that the lower rarities are no longer available. It just means that the primary drop, or at least the focused drop of that level, is going to be that particular rarity, and that's when you can begin to farm it. And then guys, we get to the biggest question of all, is when should you start focusing on farming for weapons inside of the Godforge Alpha? And like I said before, this answer might surprise you, so let me know in the comments down below, when do you start farming for your weapons? Do you do it soon? Do you do it towards the end? Or do you even do it at all? For me, progression in the caverns is so easy as you go through the first initial section of it. And when I say the first section, I'm going to say probably anywhere from 1 to 60 to 1 to level 90. And that's because the hardcore gamers, the people who are really playing a lot in those early days of the Godforge Alpha, are able to get through level 90 in the first 24 hours of the game. And when you're hitting that kind of progression, as you are progressing through the content and blowing through the waves that quickly, there really is no time to farm. Now, they may farm level 70 to get more heroes to maximize what they're doing on their account, but that's where your focus is going to be. And so by farming weapons that early on, there really is no need to do that. And as you progress through those levels, you're going to get weapon drops naturally, and you're going to be able to just slap those on your heroes, give them the benefits that those weapons provide, and then granting them a space to have an imprint on them. And so pertaining to the question as to when you should start focusing on weapons, I would say it is after you defeat stage 120 in the caverns. Now this comes with the caveat that you receive the Ame-No-Nuhoko on level 108. And if you don't, go back and quickly farm that level a couple of times until you drop one. Because while it's not as game breaking as it was previously, it is still a huge benefit for you when it comes to fighting against the Golden Guardian on stage 120. But it's after this stage. It's after you progress through this part of the game when accuracy and resistance and really like good damage builds and all of the team synergies that you need really begin to play a part in progressing through wave content. And so after 120 is when you want to go back and find the levels that are dropping the weapons you want and spend some time farming them. Now, the benefit to farming weapons is that they drop pretty quickly. They do have a higher rate of drop on the levels that they drop, and you can get other weapons that aren't necessarily the primary drop on those levels. Between 1 hour, maybe 2, you should be able to easily get enough weapons you need to be able to maximize the weapon you're looking for, while also getting more weapons for other heroes or other weapons that you're wanting to max or anything like that. But all the weapons in the world aren't going to do you a lick of good unless you actually have the right heroes on your team built up to be able to use them and maximize your progress in the caverns. So if you enjoyed this piece of content, make sure and watch this video next.